The brokerage I'm with is called Mortgage Outlet. We are one of the GTA's largest independent brokers, funding over $1 billion in mortgages actually last year. But I'm also a multifamily investor in real estate. And, I've been investing in the Canadian marketplace since about 2013. I love talking to people about realizing their dreams and their goals through wealth creation, through real estate. And I know that, it's great for me. I definitely have. I'd like to also introduce my colleague here, Rahim Suleiman. Rahim started investing in Toronto in pre-construction projects in 2003. Giving him a ground floor perspective on exponential growth, wealth creation that has occurred here in the GTA housing market. In fact, since the Greenbelt came into force since 2005. Oh, sorry.
There we go.
I got my screen cut out on me for a second there. Okay, so here we are. We're back. Before pursuing his entrepreneurial ambitions, he spent over 10 years with Scotiabank, most recently on the corporate. Most recently on the corporate and banking side. Sure enough, it starts to go out on us right when we get started. Based in Chicago and Toronto, serving Fortune 100 companies. Rahim is a chartered financial analyst, chartered alternative investment analyst, and earned his MBA from Ivy Business School. Okay, so perfect. Let's jump into this. So you're all here because you want to pay off your mortgage within 10 years. And if you haven't pieced it together yet, I'm here to tell you that involves buying that one investment property. There's no secret system. There's no magic formula. It's buy that one property. You can sell that property and you can pay off your mortgage within 10 years and be mortgage free. I'm going to walk you through how to do that. So bear with me here. I'm just going to share my screen and we're going to go forward. So just quickly before we get started, I'm just going to put a little disclaimer out. So these are our opinions, not overall advice. Everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. All figures here are based on historical data and third-party sources. Okay, so Rahim, this is a project I think I mentioned to you. This is actually in our discussion. This was a property that I converted into a legal triplex. This property, in fact, this is the one that I mentioned that I just rented the top 2 floors out to these U of T college professors for $3,800 a month. And the total building itself, the projected income is going to be about $8,000 a month. I've set it up that the tenants are going to pay their own hydro. And your net cash flow here is, in fact, $1,100 a month. Principal pay down is going to be $2,800 roughly. And I assume a conservative property appreciation of about 5%. And that gives you a total of about $8,300 a month with a total return of 34% ROI. So listen, first of all, I'm not recommending you rush out and try this on your first foray into property investing. It first and foremost requires a great team of a real estate agent, a mortgage agent, architect, general contractor, but only to show you that, I walk the walk in terms of what I'm about to describe to you. So I mentioned here, a broker. I'm with a award-winning team. Here's a little shot of our group. And, we've got many years experience helping clients build their portfolios. So, okay, what can you accomplish with owning that one investment property? That's what this presentation really is about. I'm going to show you later on how easy it is to build even $1 million with a real estate portfolio with very little work. So the reason you're here, the reason you saw this on social media or a Facebook ad, or even you're a past client of ours, is that you want to be mortgage free in 10 years. Most people are going down this path. They're trying to pay their mortgage off. Their parents, their grandparents have been telling them, pay your mortgage off. Life is going to be grand. And I'm telling you that there maybe is a quicker way to do it. It's buy that one investment property and you can retire maybe 5 years early, maybe 3 years early. It's going to be different for each of us, but you're going to have the ability to retire early, no doubt. In fact, the other point is not many people have a pension these days. If you set this up right, I can show you how you create a pension income here for retirement. And in fact, also owning that property can even help you send your kids to college with no student loan debt. And what we're most proud of is that this One Property Way program, so we've helped over 100 families buy their first investment property. Many of those, more than 50 of them, I would say, went on to buy their second and third. But I don't think 100 families didn't think that they could. We help show them the way. It's easier than they think, and they're on their way to do many great things and reach their goals with real estate. So what we're going to cover today, I mean, we're just going to go over the basics of understanding what cash flow, leverage, return on investment, and net worth. Then we're going to be playing a game. Where does the bank want you to invest your money? And this is a bit eye-opening. And secondly, also why I believe, or we believe that, Ontario and Alberta are the best places in Canada for real estate. We're going to show you the numbers. We're going to go that we're going to. Most of us are investing today. I know we had an offline chat, Raheem and I, about the stock market, how it's a bit, it's going down. It's a bit jittery. People are concerned. And people have, been putting away money. If you're responsible as well, if you have kids or so forth, towards your RSP, towards an RESP. And I'm going to make a comparison between investing in that or investing in real estate. And finally, I'm going to talk about how creating $2 million for retirement, and it could be easier than you think, by following a simple blueprint. I'm going to lay it all out for you. Raheem, I'm a visual guy. I need to see it laid out. I'm in the trenches. I do this every day. I've been doing this for over 5 years. It sounds easy for me when I talk about it. But for most people, that don't live in this world, it's really hard to wrap your head around it. So I'm going to show you. So here we go. We're going to get started. Raheem, also, I'm getting maybe a little bit of feedback here. I don't know. Can you mute yourself just for a second and then come back up? Fantastic. Okay, great. Okay, so the One Property Blueprint. This is going to be an example. We're going to reference this a lot in this presentation. So for this, I picked a $500,000 investment property. If you end up buying a property that's $400,000 or $700,000, the concept really is going to be the same. But for a $500,000 property, you're going to need a $100,000 down payment or 20% for investment. Now, where are you going to get that? Well, we're going to get into that. But for a $500,000 per purchase, it's a $100,000 down payment, which means a $400,000 mortgage. Now, let's break down the numbers. I want to show you how owning that one property can really change your life. This diagram is going to help point it out. I'm going to assume an appreciation on this property conservatively of 5%. So after year one, it's going to be worth $525. Then after a year or two, it's going to be worth a little over $550 because, compound interest starts to add up. Now, I chose 5% here, Raheem, because the 30-year average actually in the GTHA going back is actually 7.39%. So I went on the low end. So for this example, you're going to own this property for 15 years, okay? 5% appreciation over 15 years has a value of $1,039,000. Your remaining mortgage after that 15 years is probably going to be about $250,000. And that means you're going to have equity in this property of $788,000. So we're going to minus out that initial down payment that you put, and that's going to give you $688,000 profit after 15 years, appreciating over 5% a year. After 20 years, well, your property has then appreciated, to 1.3 million. You've got a remaining mortgage of 181. You've got over $1 million in equity in the property, even after we pay back that initial down payment. So you can sell this property, and you're left with over $1 million in profit. Now, there's going to be capital gains. There's going to be, realtor fees to pay, and let's put that aside for now because those are factors, correct? But this is just one property. Yeah. So, I mean, Raheem, if I could ask you, what's your feeling on a 5% a year appreciation? Sorry, I think you're still on mute.
I think given that where we've been at, I think that it's a very achievable rate of return over a longer term horizon for sure. So over a 10, 15-year horizon, I think it's very feasible because demand to live in Toronto is not going away.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And not just Toronto, also, all over the Golden Horseshoe, in fact, is really, how the stats really play out. Okay, so look, we're going to play a little bit of a game here. Okay, we're going to say I'm going to give you 100,000. Okay.
Okay.
The goal is to go into your bank. You have to get money from them in 3 different scenarios. Okay.
Okay.
So in scenario 1, you're going to go into your bank. You've been banking at the one for 20 years or 15 years, and you're going to go, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Banker, I've got 100,000. I've got this great business idea, or I want to buy a business that's already up and running. How much do you think that they're going to give you? Well,
probably 1 to 1.
Well, if
that,
I mean, if you know that, if you've ever applied for a business loan before, you know that it's going to be very tough for them to match the money that you're giving out. Unless you have a lot of money with them or you have success in doing what you're currently doing in that business. If you want to start out and just as an investment and buy into a business, it's going to be very hard for them to match your funds. But for this example, I'm going to assume that they're going to match it. And then let's say in the other example that you're going to walk into the same bank and you're going to say, I want to give 100,000 to that best financial advisor, the one that you've been telling me about, I have to meet. I want to give you this 100,000. But I also want you to loan me money as well on margin to work with you against it. And here you go. How much do you think in that case they're willing to actually pledge you margin on this account?
Maybe 3 to 1.
Maybe, maybe 3 to 1. But I would say even less. I mean, in many cases, what I found is that unless you're a high net worth individual, if you just have that 100,000 and you don't have any other assets with them, it's going to be hard for them to give you much to match that. But again, I'm going to say here they're going to do it. Okay. Now let's say you walked into your bank and let's say it's even a bank that you didn't know. Okay, it could be a credit union, could be a lender, any bank. They don't know you. They don't have any relationship with you, but you want to buy a property.
Okay, so I just came in right off the street.
Right off the street. And you're going to come in there and you're going to say, I want to buy this property. It's in this location. I don't know what, the quality of it is or what.
Let's just say it's sight unseen. I just came in and I was like, look, I got 100,000. I saw this property for 500. I got a, note from my broker that I want to buy it. What can you guys do for me?
Exactly, correct. So, if you're salaried, you have proper income. The answer to that is, and from our one property blueprint, it's 400,000. Okay.
Yeah, sounds like a good 80-20 split.
Exactly. Right. Correct. Yes. So, they're going to pull your credits. They're going to look at the MLS listing, as you said, and they're going to go, yeah, we like that. Let's do this. So scenario 1, they've told you, they don't want to really invest in you. In scenario 2, they don't really want to invest even in their own people to, generate that kind of money and to give you that kind of loan. But in scenario 3, they're going to invest in a random property. So folks, I'm not telling you this. The banks are telling you this based on how they view risk. They're saying real estate is 4 times less risky than running a business or the stock market. And so if your goal was to make $100,000 over a 5-year period, right? On your business, you're going to need a 50% return. You're also going to need that in the stock market. So say that another way, and it's 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%. Now I know that there's some compounding that I didn't mention here, but let's leave that aside for just a second. And let's say, how much are you going to need to make it in property to make that 100,000? Well, you only need a 20% return over 5 years. So said another way, it could be the same as 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%. And how many of us have been able to achieve a 4% return on our investments, every year over 5 years? It seems a lot more achievable, a lot more reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah. So Ontario and Alberta, best places that we find today in Canada for real estate. We've got over 400,000 people moving here every year. They need to live somewhere. Most of these people are moving here. They're not buying right away. They want to get their feet wet, or they can't afford to buy right away. So they have to go and rent. And so what happens is, this dries up the supply of rental, which means more investors come into the market. And that's why we can see that vacancy is really so low. And if they're going to be buying a property in Toronto, in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Burlington, Mississauga, I know that you can have it rented out within a few weeks.
Absolutely.
Unemployment in this country is very low. It's actually lower than this now. It's gone down more than mid fives. Vacancy rate across these markets are in Calgary a little bit higher, but in the GTHA around 1%. That still hasn't moved, even with this recent change in the real estate market. Vacancy for rental is very tight. Household incomes are keeping up with inflation. We're seeing that today, that wages are going up to match it. Companies are having to pay more to keep their people. And finally, we've got a lot, we have a 30-year average appreciation, as I mentioned, in real estate, and this is Canada-wide, of over 7%. And we've got many tech companies, a lot of large businesses that are establishing offices here in Toronto, but also in the West now, because the affordability and the market is really diversifying. Here's another slide that I also added here, which is this is recent statistics from TREB and IRCC that is showing you, these are the permanent resident admissions, and you can see that big spike that took place now over the pandemic. And actually this is to do with the fact that a lot of people were here, they were granted permanent residency. And immigration, as you see, is running around 460,000 at an annualized rate, which is enough to clear their target of 430 for 2022. So no shortage of demand in this market. Another thing this is the statistic for Toronto for metro rentals months of inventory that are out there. And you can see here that 2022 is the line in green. It's record tight. It's even lower than the 2017 years, very close to that seen here, and it's following a bit of a seasonal pattern. So this is with rental inventory, this is the strongest market right now. So rent prices, if you're buying now and you're wanting to rent out the property, you're going to be getting the strongest rents coming into the spring summer market. Finally, we talked about the university and how you've got a great demand for students. Well, Canada study permits are way up. We're a very popular place. This is just Jan and Feb. And we're taking market share from the U.S., but internationally we've always been known to be a great place for students. Okay. Raheem, I don't know. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've seen there from clients or from students, from the rental perspective, and what sort of demand is like from the leasing point of view?
Well, from our investor clients that have been purchasing properties right now, we've seen like leases are just getting snapped up. We've had multiple offers for leases now. Instead of to purchase, we have multiple offers from students to lease because good quality housing, especially near like U of T, is in super demand. Near other schools, so near Waterloo, we have clients who bought investment properties there. They've done extremely well. Near the University of Guelph, pretty much anywhere that there's like a first-class university institution right now, there's just immense demand for student rentals, for any kind of student housing. And it's not like low income, it's you're getting solid rents like $3,000 a month for a 2-bedroom unit. It's quite astounding.
Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, skipping ahead here. So this is we're going to talk about, this is sort of a thing I'd like to say, what your financial advisor doesn't want you to know. And so this was an interesting one when it was shown to me and my wife at the time when we started out our investing journey. Of course, it drastically changed really how we invest and where we invest and where we put our own money. I show this to clients, when I used to do this in person, and it was very eye-opening. So it's like 2 slides. Basically, we're just going to compare apples to apples here. So traditional investments, right? RSPs, mutual funds, TFSA, wherever you're putting your money, we're going to compare that to investing in real estate. I'm going to assume here that you're putting away about $400 a month. If you're not putting anything away, that's okay. If it's $200, that's okay. Just to see apples to apples, because the concept, the theory behind it is the same no matter what you're putting down. But so if we're putting down $400 a month, every month off our paycheck for, $4 per month for 15 years, towards an RSP or even an RESP, in the case of an RESP, say you have, 2 kids, that's going to be almost maxing it out. And, I'm going to assume that you're doing that every month. And let's say, we're going to give you a 5% return on investment every year. And, I think that's, very reasonable once you back out the fees involved. And that'll leave you with, if you do the math, about $107,000 at 5% a year, at $400 a month every year. That's what you're going to be left with. So, you've got $500,000 is just sitting there, right? In the RESPs, it's going to be a little bit higher because, as we know, the government kicks in a little bit of money, but not that much higher. But in the case of when you signed up for this with your financial advisor, it's like mission accomplished, right? You're sitting down with your significant other, if you can imagine it, with your financial advisor. Maybe you're at the kitchen table, you pull out a spreadsheet and you go, okay, 5% return after my fees, $100,000 in there. Okay. They did what they were supposed to do. And I sit there and I go, okay, geez, I don't know what I could do maybe with 100,000, because it sounds good at the time. We feel like this pressure, like we have to do something. But really, what can we do with that? Can we send our kids to school with that, with residency costs in 15 years? I'm not so sure. And then again, how does this impact my retirement? I know it's only $400 a month that we're putting away, but $100,000 with the cost of money, inflation, you're not really getting that much. But from the financial advisor's point of view, it's mission accomplished. This is what they set out for you in this plan at the beginning. So we can't be upset with them for that case. But if I compare that, to real estate here, and I'm going to be saying you're going to borrow $100,000, okay, just like we would in that one property example, and that cost is going to cost you also around about $400 a month today with a line of credit. And so we're gonna, so what I'm saying is, okay, let's whatever we're putting on the left side of the screen, let's take that, let's put that on the right side. Let's put it right in, let's shift it over so it's not costing any more money. And we're going to say you're going to own this property also for 15 years. It's going to be at 5% appreciation. And we know this property is going to be worth $1 million, right? You had a mortgage on it, $250,000. The equity you create, $788,000. We take out that initial that you pay back yourself, or if you sell the property, you can remove that initial down payment. You're left with $688,000. So it's 107 versus 688, 641% higher ROI by that one investment property. Raheem?
Very significant difference.
Very significant difference. Inflation really eats away at these numbers over time. Inflation really high right now, 15 years, hard to say, but it's not going down very soon, back to the 1% level.
Well, to your point about inflation, I think what people need to remember too is that inflation is positively correlated with real estate. So your real estate will actually benefit from high inflation because replacement costs go up.
Exactly. Cost of materials, cost of building properties are, they just can't build them for what they could before. But okay. I know that, there's some conspiracy theorists out there, let's say, getting a 5% return, 15 years, every year, no way, we've already been doing that. We've been getting 7% over 30 years is what I say. But let's say, what if, okay, let's run this example. What if we get a 2% return instead of 5 after 15 years?
Okay.
We're going up by 2%. The market, is not doing well. Real estate is not doing that well. 2% a year, instead of 5. And let's even say your mutual fund, the stock market is actually better. You're going to get 10% a year. Instead of 5, if we compare those two examples. Well, at the end of the day, you're still better off. When I did the math, I'd take 2%, I compound that over at 100,000, the $400 a month over by 5% over 15 years versus doing it against the 10%, you're still getting almost 200% high return on investment. Right. And let's be honest, it's not because you picked the right, perfect property or because you picked the wrong mutual fund. It's because, there's no special system. It's real estate. You're starting from $500,000 right out of the gate.
The benefits of leverage, right? You're getting 5 to 1 leverage.
Exactly. With that $400 a month, it's that traditional route that most of us are actually doing. That are not in the real estate market. It's, you're starting with that $400. The next month it's $800, then $1,200. It's a long road up. But as you said, you're leveraging. So I say run the race the right way. Okay, crazy idea. Let's assume your property never went up in value. Okay, then what? Okay. So after 15 years, you get an appraisal done and it's worth $1 million. It's worth $500,000. It didn't go up $1 after 15 years. Well, guess what? You still earn $44,000 more than your traditional investment where we gave you a 5% return. In fact, it's actually probably going to be higher, right? Because of positive cash flow. It's probably going to be closer to 50,000. Your property can never go up over the 15 years, even $1. It's not going to happen, in the history of Canada, it doesn't happen, but you still win in this example. So because your mortgage is being paid down by that tenant, you're forced to make mortgage payments. You're making this, say, $2,000 a month mortgage payment out of the gate. $900 of that is going towards the principal. Even more so if you're in a variable rate. So if your tenant just paid off $10,000 in that first year and then $12,000, that property, is, that it never has to go up in value, and you're still better off. If you kept that property going after 20 years, you're $60,000 ahead. So, it's very eye-opening to see that with the power of leverage, with the fact that you've got more than one lever here, you've got the cash flow potentially, you've got the mortgage pay down, which is a big part of it, and you've got the appreciation, those three pillars of real estate.
Well, to your point, I think the important thing to highlight, right, is like it doesn't matter if it's a $500,000 property or a $300,000 property or a $3 million property. At the end of the day, over a fixed time horizon, your tenant is going to pay off your mortgage while you sleep. So unless you think your property is going to be worth zero after 30 years, you're going to be left with something. Whereas, if you make some bad stock investments, you may not be as fortunate.
That's right. That's right.
Because a lot of people used to rely on GE, I think is one of the best examples I can give, right? GE always raised their dividend. They were always, well-run company. Jack Welch is every business school talks about him, right? GE stock has had the worst returns now for over a decade, if not longer, right? No value created. You've actually lost money being a holder. And the dividend's been cut too. So where are you getting your cash flow? At least you know that someone's going to need to rent your place and pay you rent, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. And
I know pandemic was the stress test. And even though, rents were deferred and stuff, property values caught up enough to more than offset the damage that anybody who had an investment property felt. And if you have good tenants, you know what? Your good tenants are still going to pay even during tough times.
That's right. That's right. I think the default rate on even during the pandemic. Now, granted, the government really stepped in there, but it was maybe about 92%. Was the even at the height of the pandemic was the
more than 9 out of 10 were making
default rate was correct, which was less than 10%.
Yeah.
Okay. So what if you could accomplish this? Okay, without increasing your monthly budget. Okay, I'm going to walk you through an example of a client that we worked with. Okay, right down to the dollar. Okay, we're going to assume. Let's just assume that your mortgage payment, the property tax, heat, your car payments, your debt, credit card debt, groceries, everything adds up to $3,000 a month. And you're going to say to me, well, Robert, we can actually spend more than that. We don't want to spend more than that. We can't spend more than that. We don't want to spend more than that. I'm on maternity leave. I'm self-employed. I've got kids in daycare. There's so many reasons here. And I say to you, okay, well, that's fine. Let's look at a scenario where we can buy you an investment property and keep all your payments all in for both properties at $3,000 a month. So I can, we'll run the numbers. If it's a possibility, we'll build out a proposal for it. We'll show you all the moving parts. I'm going to show you an example here of one of these proposals, in fact, Raheem, right after. But this is something that 60% of our clients can take advantage of if they want. And there are others, that say that that's great to know, Robert, but, we actually have a little room in our budget because we're putting money away, let's say in savings or in TFSA, and it's not really doing that much for us. I'd rather use leverage and leverage it into real estate. And I say, great. Okay, well, that's a direction that you want to go. Sure. We can do that. So, I want to point out that for a lot of people, there's this old school way of retirement. And that's, I might be dating myself here, Raheem, but, there's a book called The Wealthy Barber by Dave Chilton. And it tells you to put your money in RSPs and to pay yourself first, which I believe is a good concept. Pay yourself first, but then pay your mortgage down, defer tax, put it in, and then later pull it out.
I think when that book was written, though, interest rates were nowhere near as low as they are now. So that's really skewed the equation.
Yeah, correct. And I think also as our parents, our grandparents, they told us, pay off your mortgage. And
that was always the goal, get it done as fast as possible.
Exactly. And their $2,000 a month payment on their house, whatever their mortgage payment is with, and now it's gone. And you think, you're thinking at that point, well, hey, I've won life. We've accomplished it. We got there. We grinded away. We made our prepayment privileges. We worked hard over time. We budgeted. We paid off our mortgage. But when it comes to retirement time, you've got this great equity in your home. And potentially you've got these investments in the RSPs, the RESPs, like most of us are really doing. And that's supposed to equal retirement. But I think the true reality is a lot of people have come to realize is that, you've got this property, it's paid off. And sure, you've got a couple thousand, maybe more in your pocket. But is that really going to change your quality of life? I'm not so sure about that. Can you do big things with that couple thousand? You've got all this equity tied up in your principal. So what do you do? Well, you could at that point pull it back out. But it's pretty ironic because, you're putting a mortgage back onto it, or a reverse mortgage, or refinancing that you just spent the last 20 years paying it off. Or you could sell, you could downsize and put that money in your pocket. But then, where do you put that money? It's just going to sit there, maybe earn, today, what's it going to earn in the bank? 3%, so this is the traditional model that I think 95% of us are doing. And I'm saying, that there is a new school way. And that is use your principal residence as a vehicle to buy more real estate. So if you bought a property in the last 3 to 10 years, or even longer, in the GTHA, which includes, the Hamilton, say GTHA, which is the whole Golden Horseshoe, you've won. You've got some nice equity in there.
Absolutely.
So, a lot of us are sitting there with just money that's not really doing anything. And you could use that money as a vehicle to buy. So, we say, okay, the new school way is actually, having your investments, but also having equity in multiple properties. And that's going to be retirement on your own terms. That opens up a lot of opportunities for you because you've got it, as you saw there, $1 million. If you have more than one property, then several $1 million at your disposal after that 15 or 20 years.
Well, I think what we really got to look at, right? It's like if you own a stake in, say, 2 or 3 different properties, and you can still manage to pay them all off over a course of 30 years, just like you would have with your own principal mortgage, because now you got tenants helping pay those down. You've locked in the cost of those properties once you bought them. So as long as you don't sell, right, your debt is fixed. So over a 30-year horizon, it's going to get paid off. And that's taking advantage of time that you can't get back, right? Because if you do this when you're in your 20s or your 30s, if the bank of mom and dad helps or whatever, regardless of how you slice it, right, you're not going to get that edge back. So a lot of parents now, they're buying an investment property, like to your earlier example, for their kids because they're already planning that, my kids are going to go to U of T or they're going to go to Guelph or whatever. Or even if they're not going to go to that school, getting their foot in the door now, though, is going to give them a free education.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, and it opens up, as I said, a lot of opportunities for them from a retirement point of view, from that wealth creation point of view.
It changes the game for the whole family, really.
Exactly. And I'm going to show you here, I'm going to show you that overview of how to create $2 million. Actually, in this example, it's even up to $3 million. And I'll, we'll help with this kind of, we'll piece it together here with all the moving parts. So we're going to start off, as I mentioned, we talked about that one investment property. And you're going to start there. You're going to start with that $100,000. And we're going to determine, it's, where you start, where do we go? So again, where are we going to get that 100,000? Well, it's going to be a little bit different for many of us. It could be from a line of credit. It could be from a refinance of your existing property. It's really determined on a case-by-case basis. You could be piecing together some of the funds from savings or from your potential what other investments that you're putting together. So if we go it on so after 3 or 4 years, that property's gone up in value. A tenant has been paying down your mortgage as we talked about. And then we're going to, that you've created equity, we're going to refinance that money out of that property at that point. We're going to run it at cash flow neutral. So it's not going to cost you anything a month to carry that property. And we're going to go out, we're going to rinse and repeat. We're going to buy another investment property. And then after 3 or 4 years, after 2 years, we're going to refinance both of those properties and potentially take out $150,000 and purchase property number 3. So they've both appreciated. They've both been paid down by your tenants. We're pulling out money to buy property number 3. And then, after 5 or 6 years in total, if you look at this is 3-4 years, and then you're adding in another 2 years. So 5 to 6 years, you've got 3 investment properties. And here's the cool thing. You only put in that initial $100,000.
And on top of this, your primary residence is also appreciating tax-free.
Correct. Yeah, I didn't even mention that. The equity that you've created here in 3 properties, if you look at it, from that, as we talked about in that simple example, was $688,000, and now you've got $1.6 million. After 25 years, if you held it, just based on that appreciation of 5%, you're looking at over $3.6 million. So your net worth after 15 years when we go back to our initial example, well, the old school way was you're going to have $1,239,000, but in the new school way, you've got over $2.8 million. Like those are crazy numbers, and you did this with that initial $100,000 that was taken from the equity in your home.
Not just that, you did it in a fairly low risk method versus, trying to find the next Tesla.
Right.
Your biggest risk here is really time, because once you lock in your price, right, that like 25 years out, that house is going to be paid off, that investment property, the second one, the third one, like everything's going to get paid off. It's just about making sure that it's rented, that it's well kept, and that you get good tenants. And it's not rocket science, right? Once you purchase it, you fix that price. When you go and buy Tesla stock today at $1,000 a share, well, you're hoping Elon Musk is going to, take it to the moon.
Correct. Yes. I mean, Tesla, was, great. Or as you said, if you bought in at the right time, you did fantastic. And look where it is now. So it's, you ride that wave with it, and it depends, when are you going to get out? Can have a big, based on your retirement, it can have a very big difference on your net worth. Whereas, the real estate, the boring real estate, is appreciating in the background, slowly at that 5% conservatively. And at the end of the day, you sleep at night. You see where the numbers are taking you.
And there's a lot of potential tax advantages also to being an owner of real estate versus, equity owner.
Correct. Yes. Most people are able to write down with depreciation, expenses, write down their rental income to almost nil. So they're not paying personal taxes on it, come tax time. So that's another win right there. Whereas you're paying taxes on that dividend income every year. So it's again, just like you said, there's so many advantages. So what I like to ask is always, would you rather be mortgage free in 25 years, which is the old school way, or would you rather have 5 years left on your mortgage, the new school way, and be worth over 3.6 million? Because that's really what we're talking about here. And then, so the question is, why would you have 5 years left on the mortgage? This is on your personal property. Well, in some examples, if you want to pull that 100,000 equity out of your home, you don't want your payments to go up. When we're going to refinance or take money out, you want to offset that. Well, we can add 5 years onto the mortgage. We can re-amortize it. So your current payments are going to be the same, and you're going to just extend your mortgage out. But you might say, I don't want to do that. I'm trying to pay my mortgage off. And I say to you, we're going to be able to pay it off. Remember, you could sell one of those properties in 10 years and pay off that mortgage. But you could keep going, refinance that property if you choose, and buy another property, and then possibly a third, to raise your net worth.
Absolutely. And just depending on how the market plays out, I mean, we've had clients who bought investment properties. I mean, some of it was dumb luck. They bought, late 2019, and then the pandemic happened, and it's the gains have been, triple digit. So
Exactly. Yeah.
right
Exactly.
place, right time, right?
Right place, right time. So this is something that I really want to address, because the next 3 points I think are really important, Raheem. These 3 points have kept you out, or not, kept out many people out of property investment. I don't want to be a landlord.
That's a common one. Yep.
What if the tenants don't pay? What if they damage the property? And then, I don't want to fix toilets in the middle of the night. I'm a professional. I've got a regular job. I don't have time. I've got a young family. I don't have time to to worry about this. And I don't, and so I say to them, listen, I don't want to do that either. If I had to do that stuff, I wouldn't want to be a property investor either. There are solutions, and the solutions are property management and insurance. So what I tell people is that, property management will cost, placing a tenant with a good realtor, find you the right tenant, screen them very, very, very well, will cost you 1 month's rent.
Yep.
You can figure maybe 6 to 8% of the gross rent over the period. Insurance, can cost potentially $600 per unit per annum in my area. It's different in different neighborhoods, but let's say, in this area, it can be up to $600 a unit.
Yeah, so $50 a month, not nothing.
Exactly, and there's insurance that will cover even lost rent. There are policies that will cover lost rent if you have that, because you have to fix up a unit.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely what's suitable for your personal risk profile.
Correct. Yeah. Now, listen. Now, you might say to me, and I've got this a lot too, is that, Robert, well, if I have to pay all these extra fees, well, that's going to eat into cash flow, right? Like, then how much am I really going to be making here? And what I say to those people, Raheem, it's interesting, is that I say that, if you are not happy about paying, expenses to property management and so forth, I say, well, whether you know it or not, you're paying management fees for all the ETF funds that you've invested in, right? Whether you see them or not, So if you have an issue paying property management, I think you should talk to your investment advisor, tell them you're not going to pay them anymore if they don't give you positive results, because if you have an RSP or RESP, you're paying a fee whether that stock portfolio goes up or down. Your financial planner is still going to get paid.
Yep.
Excuse me. But whereas my property manager, well, they only get paid if they're doing their job. If the rents don't get collected, they're not getting paid. If they haven't found you a tenant, well, guess what? They're not going to get paid. So I much prefer to pay a property manager than a financial advisor, because my financial goals and their financial goals are connected, right?
Yep. Well, and it's just about the right, the right viewpoint, because property management is not what's going to deter you from getting to a $3.6 million net worth through owning multiple investment properties. Property management is just like a function of how to tackle the problem. Because if you buy a property that's 2 hours away from you, I think you'd be more than happy to pay a month's rent to have someone make it completely hands off for you.
For sure. And people don't realize, they think that, well, I'm investing here, I'm getting a return, but they're paying fees. And so, it's not like they're not paying a fee on that portfolio. So, paying fees to get returns, whether it's in real estate or it's in the financial market, it's going to happen. So, you have to think of it both ways. So myth or fact? Okay. So paying off your mortgage is going to lead to financial freedom.
I would say that's a myth.
That is a myth. I think we dispelled that. We talked about that.
I think
all the way through here. Being a landlord is hard work.
I think that's a myth too.
Well, it's a big one. It's a big objection that people had. They're like, Robert, I don't want to be a landlord. And, I'm going to tell you, Raheem, I own three tools. Okay. I'm a lazy landlord. I buy properties where I think I know there's minimal work. I get great tenants in. I get great rent. I make sure tenants are awesome tenants. We pick from the best, right? If there's any work involved, I can get a property management company to help me. But look, if you want to put some sweat equity into a property, if you've got a tool belt, if you're handy, you want to build stuff and renovate, by all means, you can do that. But
Absolutely.
I think for the majority of us, who are focusing on our careers, we've got hobbies, we've got family, friends, we don't want to have to be that involved. So
If you want it to be a passive investment, we can make it a passive investment for you.
exactly correct. Your kids will need to help. You need your help to buy a home.
It's pretty much a guaranteed fact.
This is a big one. I'm a mortgage broker. We deal with a lot of kids coming out of school. They're coming out with $45,000, $50,000 starting salary. They want to get into their starter home. It's just not computing, right? So they're going to the bank of mom and dad, and either they're co-signing for them or they're giving them an early inheritance. And we're trending that way. And so if your kids are going to be buying a home in 15 years after they come out of school, their income might be, let's say 15 years from now, right? You have young kids now, 15 years from now, they're coming out of school. Let's say, I don't know, with inflation, what are starting salaries? Maybe they're 80,000.
I've seen 100,000, but it's just like, you got to just think about it as like, if you can afford to help your kids buy a home, right? They're going to be paying off that mortgage to you. So why would you want them to rent for like 10 years to try and pay off someone else's mortgage? Because they're never going to be able to save as fast as house prices have gone up now. It's just like the math is just, it's not possible.
For sure. There's just no chance that they're going to be able to do it on their own. So, so what I say is, just like you said, exactly, why not lock in 2022 prices?
Yep.
Put in less money than you would if you had to help them 15 years from now.
Absolutely.
And you're going to
they get the benefit from living in it now, right? Because they still got to live somewhere, unless they're living with you.
That's it, correct? Yeah, and you're going to be giving, even if they're living with you and going to school with you, if you bought them a property, you're going to be able to give them something down the road. So why not put $100,000 down now, leverage yourself, create that $678,000, give it all to them, or give them a small portion of it, or spread it out amongst your kids. Either way, they're going to be needing your help. So,
it's about you getting their foot in the door, right? As a
correct.
parent, that's really like the mindset that you're putting that first stake down for your kid, and your kid could be the one owning like 10 investment properties by the time they're in their like 30s, 40s, and they're gonna have a very, comfortable life.
That's right. That's right. And then what happens in the next couple of years? Well, how is that going to affect me as a real estate investor? And I tell people that, listen, real estate as an investor, I play the long game. I'm not concerned about what's going to happen over the next 3 years. I'm interested more so in the next 10 years or 15 years. Historically, in fact, as we know, over 30 years, we've been able to get, as I mentioned before, a 7% annualized return. So the next couple of years, whether I buy at the bottom of the market, or I buy, if I'm buying now, or if I'm going to buy, let's say it's going to go down a little bit, I'm not too concerned because I'm looking 10, 15 years down the road.
Absolutely.
So another thing here is, like, as I mentioned, it's like having a second job that you don't have to go to, right? Don't kid yourself. There could be a little bit of work. It's still a business. You're running a business. There's a pot of gold at the end of this rainbow.
Well, you're benefiting on both ends, right? Because you own it.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not like 10 hours a week. It's not like a real second job. But there is going to be some work. But after 1 year of owning that investment property, right, the appreciation and the mortgage pay down, it's like having a $32,000 a year salary that you're earning, in net worth, if you add in all those three things. And then after, 3 years, well, it's gonna be higher because rents are higher. You've been paying down that mortgage, so more of that money is going into your pocket.
Yep.
So you're getting net worth 36,000 after 3 years, 44,000 after 7 years, 50,000. So it's like having a salary. It's like having a second job.
Earning in your sleep.
That's right. That's right. So it's a great way to look at it. Is that yeah, there's some work that's involved, but if you had a second job, this is way less hours than if you really were putting away a second job to earn that 32,000 in total compensation.
Well, there's just a lot of there's a lot of tax advantages potentially as well, right? Like, I mean, you could potentially buy that place in your kid's name, and if that's their first time home buyer, they could take advantage of the new first time home buyer savings account. You can gift them some money, get some tax deductions. There's a lot of options that you're not going to get when you're just taking employment for salary, right? Your
That's right.
CPP, everything gets deducted before you get your check.
That's right. That's right. These are great points. Okay, so there's this one's another big objection, Raheem, is that when people that don't want to invest, in real estate, and it's like they're like, there's so many moving parts to buying real estate. It's so confusing. I go onto Google, I go onto YouTube, I go down these rabbit holes. Everyone's got opinions. Do this, don't do that. And I'm here to tell you here that you don't have to do any of that, right? You don't have to pay anyone to show you how to invest in real estate. You just have to buy that one property, okay? Buy that one property in that right area, put the right tenant in there, hold it for 15 years. That's it. And there's an easy button, and there's a huge easy button, and that's our phone number. So, we vetted all the people involved in making this transaction happen. So if you're working with someone like us, we have great contacts of people that are steeped in working with investment properties, lawyers, accountants to get you those tax deductions, home inspectors, property management, the mortgage, the realtor, appraiser, insurance. We vetted them all, and we can provide all these contacts for you.
Absolutely.
So finally, okay, big budget. Okay, can you see this here clearly?
Yep.
Okay, so let me walk you through this, and this will take maybe just 4 minutes. It's really informative. We're going to just start on the right side here. And I've changed some of the names here, but this was a real life example. This was a married couple. He was a police officer in Hamilton, and he was earning a salary of $115,000 a year. They have 3 kids. The wife is stay at home. So obviously they're younger kids. They were introduced to me and my team because they wanted to do a refinance. I looked at their situation, and I looked at they're carrying a bunch of debt, lines of credit, personal loans. It adds up. And I could tell that, it's a bit of stress, right? So they want to be able to fix things. And
yep.
Okay, so I said, great. Okay, yeah, it looks like you're bursting at the seams. We can help you with that. But what is retirement looking like for you? What's your plan? I ask these types of questions, and guess what? There is no plan. They can't see the forest through the trees at the moment. They've got so much debt. Okay, well, what I like to do with people when they tell me about their scenario, I look at all their numbers, is I try to work out a scenario where they can, help them to not only pay off that debt, but to get them into property investing. So I want to walk you through here. So on the far right, you've got a current budget for this property. So, I changed the names, of course, 123 Smith Street. The amortization currently is 23.5 years because they've been paying it down.
Okay.
The interest rate is 3.19. Their current mortgage is $413,000 in the yellow. Okay. And their mortgage payment was $2,063. Property taxes, so their all-in cost to carry the home, as you see here in yellow, was $2,440.
Yep.
Now, if you look below, they have a bunch of debt. Much of it is unsecured debt, lines of credit, credit cards. It came to about 100,000.
Okay.
And it's not that uncommon to see that young families, they've got 3 kids. There's a lot of expenses. And so they're carrying that by just paying the minimum payment of $1,300 a month. So they're getting maxed out, and that's all just going towards paying the interest.
Yeah.
So, their total household costs carrying the debt, the mortgage, and the property tax is here in green at $37.41. And that's a lot to carry on $115,000 a year salary. So we go to the middle here, and this was the refinance budget that we worked for them. So we started at the top. We did a 30-year amortization. We added 6.5 years onto their mortgage.
Yep.
We got them a slightly better interest rate, and even if we got them a rate that was a bit higher than that, 3.19, today some mortgages are even pushing, more than that today. It still would have made 1,000% sense to do what they did. Okay. It just so happens that we're able to get them a rate of 2.79. And that's what we did. So there's no magic here. But what we did was we increased the mortgage amount to 413 from 413 over to 645.
Okay.
And this is where, the money went. So we gave them $645,000 mortgage amount.
Yeah, we did a little equity takeout.
They had the legal costs, they had the appraisal fees. We paid out that $100,000 in debt by doing that. So they're debt free now. And their mortgage penalty was $3,500. We had to break their mortgage. It's the cost of doing business, but they're going to be way better off because we've paid off, that we've paid it off. We've paid off their other debt. And then if you see here in red, there's 126,000. So this is as you mentioned, this is the total equity takeout. So when the dust settled, we got them a new mortgage. We paid all their debt. We handled their closing costs, and we gave them $126,000 cash in the bank. Okay, no magic there. But as you see, that's $600 higher than their previous mortgage payment, right? So we added 6.5 years, $600 more to their payment. And their payment, their property taxes, their household carrying costs are now $3,019. So that big payment of $1,300, as you remember, for the interest payment is now gone. And their total household payment is $3,047. So that's approximately $700 less after everything than what they were currently paying. We also gave them $126,000. So what we did with that money is that we went over to the left side of the screen here, and what we did was we gave them. They went and they're living in Hamilton, and they bought a rental property with a 30-year mortgage. Okay, it's a live example. They bought a property for $565,000.
Great deal.
Yeah. They put down the minimum 20%. Okay, so they needed a mortgage of $452,000. Now this, so the bottom part here is their down payment, their closing costs. They have land transfer tax. They have appraisal, legal fees. Everything here, all in the red. So they need to show up at their lawyer's office with a $123,000 check. And where do we get that from? As you saw, well, we had it ready for them.
Yep, from the equity takeout.
Took it out of the equity takeout. And they rented out this property actually for $3,500 a month. They bought a property that they could rent out the upstairs and downstairs. So it was a 2-unit property, okay? And they decided they could, because they were able to get that kind of rent, they chose to go with cash flow. So instead of going cash flow neutral, as we talked about before, they went with cash flows. They put a little bit more down. And they're receiving, they chose that. So now they're getting $1,300 a month in positive cash flow every month. So this is what we did. Look what we accomplished on one salary, $115,000. They went from being, deep in debt, only covering their interest payments, to refinancing them, getting them into their first property, and giving them a $1,300 a month benefit.
Couldn't be better.
They were ecstatic. She was crying on the phone. They've already,
It's life changing.
yeah, it's totally life changing. Correct. Yeah, yeah. They've got they're on their this is their one property away, right? They've got their investment property now, and if they want to, they can rinse and repeat. They bought well. They bought a little while ago. They got a nice pop in their property value, and
Absolutely.
doing it and thinking of doing it again. So what I'm saying is, we can do this for all of your clients, right? This is what we do. We build out a budget, a custom proposal. Regardless if you're a first-time buyer, if you're selling, or if you're buying, if you're refinancing, if you're buying investment property, we build this custom proposal. We record a video of us walking through it as I've done here, line by line, showing you all the moving parts, right? We give you a video link so you can sit down, because right now I'm throwing a lot of information at you. It's like drinking from a fire hose. A lot of times it's like, but I do this all the time, but I can appreciate that most people are not paying attention to their mortgage and the numbers. They just want to sign on the dotted line. They're not always necessarily following along. So have a video. You can sit down with your significant other. You can you can digest it, and it really, really works. So we're quite proud of that. Okay, here we go. So how can you get started? Well, you're going to receive an email from us shortly. You can schedule a 20-minute strategy call with myself and Raheem.
Yep.
We can build a customized investment property plan for you, and you're off to the races. Start shopping for investment property.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's quite simpler than people give it credit for. And the first step is just getting in touch with us, and let's figure out exactly what's most appropriate for your situation, present you with some options, and then we can move forward from there.
Exactly. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the whole presentation. As far as any questions anyone might have, they can always reach out to us.
Absolutely.
In fact, if I looked here, I would say, yeah. So, sorry, there is one question here. First question, sure. Why only Hamilton in this case for real estate investments? So I hope, no, absolutely not. Hopefully you didn't get that impression. You can invest anywhere, buy anywhere, Ontario, Alberta, Calgary, Edmonton. I think Raheem has got a few things that he'd like to tell us about. If you're playing the long game, you're investing in areas that you want to invest in. You don't have to get it perfect, but because you're putting that 100,000 in, you're letting it ride for 15 or 20 years. So you don't have to knock it out of the park on the first go. But as Raheem mentioned, you can buy in Guelph, you can buy in many other markets. A lot of different areas, this strategy will work.
Yeah, I think the big reason that we really wanted to just highlight the Hamilton example was that was a client where they got such a great rental number. That's like a Toronto rent that they're getting on like a property that you wouldn't expect at that price point. And it's like, even in like university towns like Guelph, you can get rents like that. And now we've actually expanded into Calgary and Edmonton, where you can still pick up a detached home for in the $300,000 to $400,000 range. So you can buy 2 or 3 investment properties in Alberta for the cost of one investment property, say in the GTHA. And there's also a lot of tax advantages because Calgary has no land transfer taxes and there's only GST to be paid, and closing costs are a lot less. So there's a lot of opportunities there. So if anyone is interested, just feel free to reach out to myself and Rob, and we'd be happy to walk you through it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks everyone for your time, and if there's no other questions, I guess we can wrap it up there.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.